last year.
One of the better leadership classes. Which one?
Master's
meeting. Yeah. I never read Frank.
Welcome everyone to the Thursday, September 19th regular meeting of the Clear Lake City Council. Madam Clerk, can you please do roll?
Councilmember Slotin.
Here.
Councilmember Purda.
Here.
Councilmember Kramer.
Here.
Vice Mayor Overton.
Here.
And Mayor Coffey.
Here. Councilmember Sutton, can you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you please remain standing for a moment. A few weeks ago, we had a fire that decimated 30 homes in our community. First, I want to thank everyone who stepped up, our first responders, our business owners, our community leaders, our utilities all came together when we needed it the most. But right now, we have 30 families that are going through probably the hardest time in their life. So let's take a moment and think about it. Thank you, Lord. City Manager Flora, any changes to the agenda?
Yeah, well, we can deal with that on the consent agenda, so you can approve it as.
So moved. Second.
A motion from Councilmember Purdock, a second from Councilmember Kramer. Please vote in your poll.
Aye.
Motion passes with unanimous vote of the council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 1, presentation of September's adoptable dogs.
So on that, there we go. Hello, everybody. So for this month's adoptable dog, we brought Goofy. He is a 1.5 years, pit bull mix. Goofy can be shy at first, but once he gets to know you, his beautiful personality shines through. Goofy loves water and enjoys cooling off on hot days. He's also excellent on leash. Goofy loves snuggles and would make a perfect companion. He is shown to do well with other dogs, but we are unsure of how he is with cats. Goofy is neutered, microchipped, and up to date on all vaccinations. All that he's missing from his life is you. Come meet Goofy and all of our other wonderful dogs that we have available for adoption. We're open 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and we're located at 6820 Old Highway 53.
You have a background in marketing.
I think I've just done this enough times.
Council, intake to date for the shelter has been 321 dogs. 273 left the shelter, including 49 rescued, 199 returned to owner, 23 adopted, and 2 euthanized with a 99.09% live release rate. We currently have 58 dogs, including 51 adult dogs and 7 puppies. 100 microchips have been done, 98 pre-vaccinations from clinics, 11 other vaccinations, 15 neuters, and 12 spayed. I want to kind of give you an update on some things they've done during the Boyles fire. They stepped up and responded down to the center that we had established at Twin Pines. I know the director actually spent 3 days in his truck flying out of the hotel, and he said he didn't want to take up the space for any people that needed a place to stay. They've done well over 100 calls for service. They're still calculating that because calls are still coming in, and they're still just tabulating, but well over 100 calls. There was 1 boarding, 3 transports, 25 food and water were given out, 19 others, which were like people just calling, needing questions or direction, where to go, things of that nature. 40 bags were given out to the food pantry. They also delivered food to the LAC to be given out. They set up the temporary shelter, provided food and supplies, crates, bowls, staff on site, watched and cared for numerous animals while citizens needed access to the Red Cross services, and provided information and evacuees regarding homes and animals. Thank you.
Any questions from the council?
Thanks. Well, I think they were setting that, North Bay was already there, then they were bringing in another vehicle and stuff. I was already impressed that they responded so fast.
Yeah, actually, I do have a question. But we had a pretty big case. I think you guys went out with animal control and collected. a bunch of dogs and things that are kind of abandoned in an abandoned property. I heard something in the neighborhood of over 10, 15 dogs, a couple of weeks ago out in the Parkwood subdivision.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Lieutenant, I think North Bay shined during the fire, so please give them our thanks.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 2, a presentation of a proclamation declaring September 27th, 2024 as Native American Day. Whereas on Native American Day, we acknowledge and honor the First Peoples of Lake County and Clear Lake, who exemplify the values of all those in our community, in their resilience, compassion, and strength. And whereas Lake County has been home to people for more than 12,000 years, and the richly diverse cultures of the tribal nations indigenous to Lake County and Clear Lake have influenced every aspect of our community's history. And whereas Native Americans have helped make our community stronger and more prosperous, whereas we celebrate the richness of the city's unique tribal history and traditions and the impact Native American cultures have had on every American. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Clear Lake City Council does hereby call upon all citizens to recognize the special contributions to Native Americans, contributions Native Americans have made to our city, and salutes those who have sought to honor the important role of tribal leadership in our city's past, present, and future. Signed today, September 19, 2024. And I believe we have a meeting with the Elam tribe coming up here. I think this would be a great thing to hand out to them. At the time. Moving on to public comment. This is the time for any member of the public to address the city council on any matter that is not on the agenda, that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. The Brown Act, with limited exceptions, does not allow the council or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. Here in the chamber, we'll limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you are on Zoom, please leave a comment in the chat feature there, and Madam Clerk will read it after we handle all the comments here in-house. Would anyone like to make a public comment? Yes, please come forward. And if you could just state your name and city of residence. Once you get to it, so our Zoom folks can hear.
Okay. Marietta O'Connor, I live in Clear Lake. I would like to know all the work that's being done around the roads and digging and all that kind of stuff. Are the taxpayer going to be charged any of that?
So all of this
That's being done?
yeah, so all the projects are largely from taxpayer funded, either the state or the city. There's different measures that fund all of these. Right now, all of these projects are funded. So it's from past taxation that is covering all the work that's being done.
Oh, so no new, nothing.
At the moment, no new taxes are being suggested.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Hi, my name's Evelyn Gonzalez. I live in Clear Lake. The sprinklers you have around the lake is great. It's taking the smell away and everything. You guys did an excellent job. Okay, I have one comment. I don't want to say where they live or anything like that, but if you have someone that lives, there's an RV, and then there's another RV in your yard, I'm sorry, isn't that against the law?
Potentially. If you could, if you want to talk with Lieutenant Peterson here, in the back, give him the address and you can clarify.
Yeah, but then they'll say who told them. Because there's a lot of traffic going in and out and, you know,
Well, whatever you're comfortable with sharing with the lieutenant, feel free to do so, and he can be your point of contact right now. Don't want to answer from the dais here.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments here in the chamber? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, any comments on Zoom?
There are no comments on the Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I will now close public comment. And we will move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone from the council would you like to pull an item?
Mr. Mayor, before you get to that, item number 3 was inadvertently left on from the last meeting. The council already approved that item, so you can pull that one.
Any additional items pulled from council? Does any member of the public want to pull an item? Madam Clerk, anyone on Zoom?
There's no one on Zoom that wishes to pull an item, Mr. Mayor.
Bring it back.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item number 3.
I have a motion from Councilmember Sluten, a second from Vice Mayor Overton. Please vote on the portal.
I would like to comment on item 4 and thank those that serve on the Vector Control Board. They've done so month to month, and it's something that I greatly appreciate their service.
Motion passes with unanimous vote of the council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you, Councilmember Burke. Moving on to item 8, an update on the Boyles fire. City Manager Forum.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. So just wanted to give the council an update and have a discussion about anything you want related to this. But so we'll start back at the beginning. Just over a week ago, although it seems like a lifetime ago at this point, the Boyles fire broke out on Sunday afternoon, ultimately consuming a little bit over 81 acres on the eastern part of the city. At one point, we had over 4,000 residents evacuated, with over 9,000 in the city without power for a significant period of time. Total structure loss ended up being 57, 7 damaged. Do I need to stop now, Madam Clerk? 25 dwellings were completely destroyed and 3 had significant damage. 79 vehicles were destroyed. The initial damage assessment that we submitted, I guess, well, I don't know if we submitted it at this point, honestly, if it was this week or I think it was the end of last week. We submitted an update today with some additional information, but with public and private property damage, we're estimating at just over 13.6 million. Most of the impacted residents are primarily working families. And unfortunately, the insurance ratio for most of those folks, with information coming through the WAC, is at about 75%, either have no insurance or underinsured. But we can talk about that more later. No public information shared at this point on ignition. The investigation related to that is ongoing. I would like to say there's been very widespread rumor that this was ignited by almost camp, which is not appear to be the case. So I think it was interesting. There are a few areas of the fire where you can really see the value of actual vegetation mitigation efforts around residences and other areas that made it much easier for firefighters to save those homes. So it is very important. It does work. The fire did make it onto the middle school and community college campuses, but no building damage. There was some damage to solar array, city middle school, but primarily significant smoke damage and that type of thing had to be cleaned at the campus. I think combined at this point, somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 to 650,000 of impacts to those 2 properties. There is very significant vegetation management that needs to happen around both campuses that really should have happened previously. Fortunately, the fire crews were able to stop it in spite of some of that. So Fire Marshal has done a very thorough job of analyzing those properties as well as the hospital and submitted reports to each of those agencies on what needs to be done. And we're actively working with them to try to help them make sure that that happens, whether it's through possibly some state funding or through local organizations, clearly Environmental Research Center. working on a number of things that could include a direct partnership between the city and Lake County Fire Protection District and so forth. So, obviously the fire's out now, we're focusing on recovery. I'll save the details from the local assistance center that happened, took up most of this week to Director Swanson here in a moment. But so the Cal OES Watershed Protection Team did an on-site assessment on Monday morning. So they have a team that came and they want to try to determine what needs to be done to keep hazardous ash and whatnot, hazardous debris from the fire from making it into the watershed. So, we walked the areas with them. They're going to be putting a report together on what they recommend, and then submitting that back to us. And if it ends up being a state declared disaster, the state will be coming in and helping with some of that work. Fortunately, we don't have any significant rain forecast at this point. What they call the phase 1 cleanup is household hazardous waste. That's been delayed a little more than normally happens in disasters. They'd like to get that done as soon as possible because it's not really safe for residents to go back and, access their property until they have the opportunity to clean up. That is going to start on Monday at 8 a.m. So they're coordinating. They do that in partnership with Lake County Environmental Health. That process could last up to 2 weeks. But they will be removing any hazardous waste, household, a lot of the stuff, batteries from vehicles and that type of stuff, removing it from the property. And that's the phase 1. And it's kind of like, you can kind of turn it over to the property owner to do some cleanup. Or ideally, if this becomes a state declared disaster, or included in a state disaster declaration, that the state will actually come in and do that and clean up, and it won't be a responsibility of the property owners. But at this point, we still don't know if that's going to happen or not. So additionally on Monday, Cal OES and Small Business Administration will be sending a team to do a private property site assessment. So there's a threshold of 25 destroyed or significantly damaged homes for the SBA to provide private property owners very favorable terms on loans to rebuild their homes. Because the numbers that we have are right in that area, they are coming to do a site assessment and verify the numbers that we've submitted to them. We think that, we're pretty confident in our numbers, so we think it's definitely going to be above the 25, but, they're going to come out and do that assessment. And then tomorrow, Cal OES will be doing the public property damage assessment. And so they'll have a team on site that will review what we've submitted as far as public property damage. So there's really four things at this point. There was some fairly significant damage to our road infrastructure from some of the dozers right there at the top of Dam Road Extension. I'm sure if you've been through there, you've noticed that. So that's one of them. We did reach out to all of our utilities. This is primarily in Canoctay County Water District, so they did share some damage with us, relatively small. We've currently placed that at about $25,000. But we'll be taking a look at that. And then the other public facilities, of course, are the college and the middle school. So I'll also be doing assessment there. Most of the damage is really cleanup, smoke damage cleanup and that type of thing. But that will be happening tomorrow. And then really the results of that assessment is what will give Cal OES the information they need to make some disaster declaration related to this event. There's, again, no significant known damage to the utility infrastructure other than what I mentioned earlier, but I think this does certainly raise the issue again that a lot more long-term investment in our infrastructure in many areas, including this one, is badly needed. Very few fire hydrants in that 81-acre footprint. Just a couple of final things. So, like with some of the other events, like the Sulphur Fire, were included in the federal declaration, and we got a number of CDBG disaster recovery funds, and we've got a lot of funding for that, which has been pretty transformative in a number of ways related to infrastructure and some housing projects. The problem with that is it takes so long for that process to happen that it's, 4 years or something before or after the disaster we actually see money. And there's a lot of requirements on making sure that the use of those funds is tied to, directly to those who are impacted by the disaster. But unfortunately, 4 years after an event like that, folks that really needed the assistance, fell through the cracks or figured it out a different way. So, of course, we did share that concern with Congressman Thompson when he was on site last Saturday, as well as the state. And, Senator McGuire in particular has been extraordinary in, helping us and trying to get resources. We've been having weekly calls with him and his staff, and he's been making sure that the Office of Emergency Services Director, Nancy Ward, is actually in each of those conversations as well. Which is something that probably wouldn't happen without him, as, she's a direct appointee of the governor. So anyway, it's definitely ensuring that those impacted and what's happened here with the Boyles Fire is not forgotten at the state level, and I'm looking forward to continue coordination with Senator McGuire and Callaway. Really has an army of people prepared to help us. I did want to specifically point out, while this is entirely within the city and the responsibility falls on us for recovery, Callaway's manager for the county, or not Callaway's, the county emergency services manager has been extraordinarily helpful in lending any resources that she can provide to us. And so, unless there's any questions on kind of that part of it, I'd like to turn it over to Director Swanson.
Councilman Colonel.
And I want to thank you for that, and also echo your sentiments about how everybody came together. It's great how you were able to get a hold of the senator and congressman and have them up here actually physically, visiting the site. I had a question about the SBA loans after the Sulphur Fire. Pretty familiar with that. Lots of paperwork and process ultimately be denied. I'd like to, is there a way we could have some kind of oversight? I don't want people to be led to believe that's a for sure thing, because it absolutely is not. It was very disappointing to go through all that process. We lost a house.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that information. I wasn't involved in Sulphur Fire recovery. With Cash Fire, that wasn't part of the program either, so I appreciate knowing that, and we'll make sure to ask those questions and make sure that what we do relate to the public is not over-promising.
Thank you.
All right, Director Swanson.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. As City Manager Flores stated, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, we partnered with the Department of Social Services for Lake County. We partnered with the Red Cross and Callaway for a local assistance center at the youth center. It was held from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on those days. And there were 30 state, federal, and local agencies and nonprofits there to assist those who were affected by the fire in many different ways, such as financial assistance, vital document replacement, food, pet food, as Lieutenant Peterson was saying, mental health services, and on-site counseling. We served approximately 350 people over 3 days. We also had 160 households there for case management and assistance. We are working with North Coast Opportunities for case management for those families and individuals whose homes were destroyed or damaged in the Boyles Fire. Really, it was a very good example of how a community can come together in a moment of need. People showed compassion to each other, kindness, and I'd like to ask our staff at staff meetings you know, what's your why? Why do you work for the city of Clear Lake? You know, search yourself for why you want to be here and what you want to do. And to me personally, this week was a big part of my why on why I work here.
Thank you, Director.
And shout out to Melissa. Extraordinary job, extraordinary. Thank you so much to organize that. I know it's been really appreciated throughout the city. Thank you again.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Yeah, I mean, just to follow up to that, I mean, I can be more proud of our staff. I mean, you know, the public doesn't always see all the things that happen and what is required to bring some type of assistance. You know, I mean, the short-term housing that the city is providing for folks with damaged or destroyed homes is not an obligation of the city, but it's the right thing to do. And you know, our staff have jumped in over the last 2 weeks and picked up pretty extraordinary extra workload. Very few things in their regular workload have been dropped off, and especially that first week there, you know, was a lot of people working here that got very little sleep. You know, Acting Chief Snyder over there was one who was pretty tired, and you know, it doesn't always happen like that in a lot of communities. I'm very proud of it.
Thank you. Councilmember Kramer.
I was gonna wait for personal reports, but go now. I want to echo what's been said already. I spent parts of all 3 days at the LAC as one of the nonprofits, and our staff was absolutely extraordinary. Love your why, was it, Director Swanson? It made everything great, and Acting Chief, you were Acting Chief. You kind of liked it. Oh, yeah. You and I think you had your sidekick, Officer Garrett, was with you. Eric Opus was with you also. That all of you, everybody I saw was out now keeping the place going, or maintenance staff. I think I saw it going all over the place. It was extraordinary, and I was very, very proud of our staff, all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Just to follow, also thanking you for getting the people back that were displaced back in their homes that weren't damaged or destroyed by the fire. That meant a lot to them to get back home as quickly as they were. But back to business. If they missed the local assistance center, are they able to still go to DMV and take care of those things? And do we have that information available on the website?
Absolutely. I didn't get a moment to put it on the website today, but I absolutely will tomorrow. And yes, I have contact information for all of the resources that were there this week.
When something big like that happens, sometimes you just have to kind of sit in yourself and figure things out. You may not be ready to come down those 3 days that it was open. So I appreciate that. I still follow up.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still contact that we have not made with all the folks that were impacted. So there could be a variety of reasons for that, but if you talk to anyone, you know, that still has some need, encourage them to reach out to City Hall, and we'll connect them.
And even especially the support services for, hopefully our staff took advantage as well. Having chaplains there and people that they could talk to. It is so beneficial. Appreciate that.
Well, thank you for the comments. I will now open it up to public comment. If you have a comment, please come forward.
Hello, my name is Frank Foster. I'm resident of 28th and Boyles, as well as General Manager of Concord County Water District. I really didn't plan on speaking tonight, but unfortunately, Alan, Mr. Flora was talking about the water district, and it kind of forced my hand. come up here. On 18th, between Oak and Boyles, in 2015, we invested over $500,000 and put an 8-inch water line with fire hydrants every 500 feet. If you go out on 18th Avenue and you look at where the fire crossed into the main area where the homes were, they just went right through where those hydrants were. And so I just want to say I'm very proud of the response the Kanakee County Water District did to the fire. Just as you are proud of your employees and your people, I was just hoping a little bit of acknowledgement about the hard work that the Water District has done over the past 10 years in improving our district. We pumped more water during this fire than we've ever pumped before, over 900 gallons a minute. Before, our maximum capacity was about 600 gallons a minute. So my heart goes out to everybody that lost their homes. I'm not trying to make this political. I do not want to come up here and speak. But all of my crew immediately came in. We had all the crew there. Lower Lake General Manager reached out to me. I'm sorry, I'm talking a little louder. So
You're fine.
Lower Lake General Manager reached out to me. Golden State reached out to me. Highlands reached out to me. Everybody was asking if I needed any help. My whole crew was working. We kept water in the tanks. We kept pressure in all of those hydrants. Currently, we're working on $6.5 million of infrastructure improvements with Interties, a new pipeline on Dam Road with fire hydrants. So just a little bit disappointing that there couldn't be, because of all the political issues between water districts and the city, that there couldn't be any acknowledgement of the hard work that the water district has done.
So I know you came in a little late. In my opening statement, I certainly acknowledged all the hard work that you guys did. The utility companies, water companies, PG&E, we all came together, and I truly appreciate all the work your staff did.
Thank you.
We saw you guys; they were working their butts off. So thank you, and please thank your staff for us.
I appreciate that. I really do, because we
And
care
then I
about
echo that as well, Frank. You guys didn't get much sleep.
we care about this community. I was evacuated. My neighbors were evacuated. Our board members live in the district. They're elected officials, just like yourself, who live in their own community. So we're very proud. And also our hearts. It breaks our hearts. We would love to have a fire hydrant every 100 feet. I was thinking I was going to come home to my house being gone. You don't think I want fire hydrants? I live where I work. And so, like I said, I really didn't plan on coming up and speaking during this, but I know Alan did reach out to me the day after the fire, asked me if there's anything I needed, and I appreciate that. Anyways, is my time, did it go on?
Probably, but I wanted you to highlight the great work I'm doing.
So I just, it is devastating that the community is affected like this, and it's nothing that I want to see. It's heartbreaking. These are my customers, and if the fire had burned my home, I would be underinsured, and I probably need to do some mitigation measures around my home. I don't have any weeds or anything, but like trees probably need to be trimmed. But anyway, so I just want to thank you for your time, and appreciate the city and the staff who reach out to me, and we're going to meet tomorrow and go over, and I'm sure Alan's going to work to try to, we have very little loss compared to, it's nothing compared to what everybody else is dealing with. So thank you very much.
Frank, you live on 28. As a follow-up to this thing, Supervisor Salachi and I, a couple years ago, when working on starting the Fire Safe Council, Firewise community, would you be willing, when we get to that point, to maybe act as a spark plug, as they say, in your specific area, to try to get the Firewise community going there, to do just the things you were just talking about, resilience, hardening your home and, you know, working with your neighbors to encourage them to do the same.
I would love to help. I mean, I'm very
We'll reach out to you.
community oriented, you know, I care about where I work and my community deeply. So thank you very
Never
much.
doubted that.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I maybe could just respond briefly. So my intent in making the comment about not enough fire hydrants wasn't meant to be a criticism specifically of County County Water District. I understand how hard everyone was working. Did talk to General Manager Costner the next day. I talked to a number of his staff that were out there that evening while the fire was still burning around them, trying to shut off the water valves and doing everything they could to make sure that water was being used in the place it was needed. My comment around that is just that, you know, it's not just this area. There's a lot of areas. There's a lot of areas in Clear Lake. There's a lot of areas in other communities, but we have the Avenues area of Clear Lake is one of the few very high fire hazard rated areas within a local jurisdiction. And there's just not enough hydrants. You know? And that's one thing that needs to be worked on. That isn't to say that they haven't done a great job of improving the plant and being able to provide lots of water. But, you know, most of the water being put out is coming from tanker trucks. And I hope there's a day in the city where there's a lot more fire hydrants and a lot less vegetation in those areas. So we don't have to deal with this devastation every few years.
Any other comments here in the chamber? Supervisor? Then you will be limited to 3 minutes.
Not used to that. Bruno Sabate, City of Clear Lake. I just want to kind of bring us back. We have a county worker who lost their home during this fire. We have 3 teachers who were evacuated and luckily still have their homes, some of them damaged. We have students in Alpena Unified School District who've been impacted and no longer have homes to go to and still expected to go to school. And so I just kind of want to bring it back to the individuals that we're here to serve mutually and all of the above that's been talked about earlier about the collaboration, the coming together of agencies, all the stuff that Melissa worked on, including all the other agencies that were at the LAC, all of the different fire districts that came from out of county. Nobody knows the people that they were protecting, but we do. And those people still need our help, and I really appreciate how we come together during these times. It's one of those bittersweet moments where the worst brings out the best. So very thankful for everything I've seen so far.
Any other comments here in the chamber? Yes, ma'am.
Stephanie Hummel, and I'm from Clear Lake. And I was here for I would like to say thank you for the mail out that you sent out. I liked that. And it was really good that it had the open house. So I was here at the open house. And I was impressed that Mr. Mayor said that he would do the meeting first Thursday of the month, because there was a really, really, really good turnout, and I think it's really, really important. And I hope that we can still do that. So I just wanted to say thank you and let everybody know it was a really good turnout in it. And I think the officers will be in there too. I know I left a little early because it got a little heated. So I didn't know if you were still gonna do it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And for some context, the city did have an open house scheduled for that date. Then the fire happened and we still hosted it. We just opened it up and covered a myriad of topics during that. I think all the community members that did come out. As you mentioned, as long as I'm mayor for the next couple of months here, I'm very much open to continuing that the first Thursday of every month at 4 o'clock. So I'll get some information.
4 o'clock or 3 o'clock?
I think
I think you said 3 to 5, but whatever you decide, because
whatever I put up, yeah.
I'm usually here on the meeting.
Thank you. Any other comments here in the chamber? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, any comments on Zoom?
There are no comments on the Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the council. City manager, do you require any direction? No?
No, the only thing I was gonna mention is we are, I mean, you know, the part that everyone's gonna see, a lot of it's happening, right? There's an enormous amount of paperwork that follows for probably a few years, especially if there's any type of state or federal declaration associated with that. But we will do it because you know, that's the right thing to do. The community needs the help. We are planning with various agencies doing debrief, hot wash type of thing here in a couple of weeks, just to, while everything's still fairly fresh, to talk about what we can do better next time. So I just wanted to share that, but other than that, I don't think we need to.
Thank you, city manager. All right, moving on to item 9. Discussion regarding water services in Linwood City. Back to the city manager.
Okay, well, we don't have a
Can you guys hear in the back? There's a lot of background noise in the lobby.
You can't shut the door.
We can't shut the door, Frank,
If you'd like to come forward,
but if you guys want to move up so you can hear a little better and we can try to speak a little louder.
probably could close the door a little bit, so it's less noise.
No, it's a public meeting, so.
You can't move behind the locked door, it doesn't have to be. So, okay, so we don't have a speaker arranged for tonight, so you're stuck with me talking for a little bit more, and I actually haven't had a lot of time to prepare a lot of remarks, so I thought I would just give the council some updates on a few things that are going on, address any questions that you may have. So, kind of really two main areas of discussion. As you know, there's been a bit of a saga with the shareholder election that Highlands Mutual Water Company had in April. There's been a number of times in court, and a few different court orders related to that. And ultimately, what we're looking at is a new shareholder election that will be happening on September 30th at 10 o'clock in Lower Lake. So there's a few things that are different about this election than what had been attempted previously. I'm sure all of you know, based on the judge's order, that shareholders are people who own property within the boundaries of Highlands Water Company. Previously, or at least for some period of time, elections have been, shareholders have been considered customers of the company, in other words, having existing water connections. So that sort of unveiled a number of issues. There's a lot of discrepancies and just sort of issues with where the actual boundary of Highlands Water Company is. And so there was kind of a lot of back and forth on that. And we did end up working together. Highlands is represented by some new attorneys now, which has dramatically changed the ability to work with them. So that's good. But the shareholders, there's a much larger number than previously. And it's going to be a bit confusing for folks because, in fact, there's 800 or 900 properties that are also within Conocta County Water District that are within Highlands Water District. They're considered shareholders and will be given the opportunity to vote in the Highlands election, even though, some percentage of those actually, pay and receive water for Conocta County Water District. But nonetheless, this is moving forward. If you wanted to get into it, we've done a number of maps related to the boundary. I think we have a good idea of where the the boundary really is, at least for the purposes of the election. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of updates to that boundary after the election. But, you know, there's a number of properties that have been served by Highlands for a number of years, which have never been in their boundary. And then, of course, there's a lot of properties that, you know, for example, most of Burns Valley area are considered shareholders, and a lot of that area is you know, served by wells and not by the water company. So kind of a lot of confusion there. You know, not to dwell on this too much, but this is one of the difficulties, I believe, with mutual water companies, where you have no regulatory agency that oversees boundaries. Like LAFCO oversees the boundary for Canante County Water District. Public Utilities Commission oversees the boundary and other things for Golden State Water Company. There isn't that situation. It's changed by a vote of the board by amending their bylaws with no notice to shareholders. You know, our hope is that some of those practices and history there are going to change. And this has kind of started dribbling out this week as far as some public information, so some of you may have seen it around this, but while there's a lot of signs around town about a city takeover and that type of thing, what's actually happening in this election is there's a group of shareholders that have gotten together and decided that they want to see a different approach at the company that they're part owners of. So there's a new slate of board members that will be. The election process is very strange with corporate elections like that. So you don't have 10 people on the ballot and the highest vote getters win. The way it's been presented is the existing board of Highlands Water Company is being presented as a slate. And although it's very difficult to overcome sort of the mechanisms associated with that, there is a group of 5 other people who think that there needs to be some changes there. And so they have created a website, and I think they're sending out some information. You'll see more about it around. But the business owners and individuals that are involved in this are Dennis Starling, Ray Silva, Henry Bornstein, Denise Lucillo, and Thomas DeWalt. So those are the 5 folks who are going to be running. And you know, I think with the experiences that the city has had, we'll be doing what we can to support their candidacy. So that's kind of all I have around that issue, unless the council.
So as I understand, the court has ordered someone to oversee the election at their firm.
Oh yeah, that's true. There is essentially a referee that will be overseeing that election process. So attorney represented by the city and attorney representing Highlands Water Company essentially ended up agreeing, shared some names, and there's a attorney out of Sacramento that specializes in sort of corporate law and these type of elections that has been agreed to by both parties, and the judge agreed to that.
So, any questions from council on this item or this part? Yeah, seeing that.
Okay. So the other thing that I wanted to share some information about, I think I briefly mentioned it at the last meeting that we had, but coordination on construction projects. As you know, we're currently undertaking sort of the largest scope of road construction projects ever in the city's history, 18 miles right now, which are grouped in kind of 3 project areas. So we have what we call the Fall Park project, which is south of Red Bud Park, including that area down there. That is in Highlands Water District. There's very small, Canante does have some infrastructure right there along the park, as you know, but not many impacts there. And then the Tree Streets over here south of Olympic is in Golden State's territory, and then the areas up in Clear Lake Park also in Golden State's territory. So, it's difficult to coordinate some of these projects. And, on smaller projects, we haven't ran into the scope of issues until previously until this year, we were doing a lot more than normal. which is good. And, you know, the community really wants their roads fixed, as you know, and we're doing everything we can to put as much asphalt out there as possible. But, you know, this results in conflicts because we do not have control over any of the utilities in the city, sewer or water. And so, you know, we plan out through our Measure V 5-year plan, what projects are going to be implemented. We do share that through utility coordination meetings with water districts, special districts, AT&T, PG&E, all the utilities in an attempt to give an idea of where we're going. And then, you know, once we move forward and start working on design plans, I believe our practices, once we have 30% plans, is when we actually, you know, send them to utilities for review and move through. And the plans are approved, we award the contract and move forward. So, you know, I'll just explain some of the situations that we've run into this year. So we'll start with the ballpark project. So that again is in Highlands territory. There's a number of undersized and very old water infrastructure in that area. As we uncovered that, you know, there's leaks, there's issues. Highlands determined that they would try to replace about 130 lineal feet of the pipe, cover the rest of it up, and hope that it lasts 5 years beyond our pavement cut moratorium. In fixing the first 130 feet, it became difficult for them to sort of tie that new stuff into the old stuff. It kept bleeding along, and, you know, we didn't really like the idea of, you know, praying for it to last 5 years because, you know, whether it happens in a year or 6 years from now, we're still going to have a pretty good road there that we hate to have cut up the length of it and a lot of damage and replacement. So fortunately, our team in coordination with Highlands Water, they did look at, you know, so, well, there's a few things that happen. One, when you're in the middle of a project and you're moving forward and you have to pivot and start replacing the infrastructure on the street, it causes delays to our road project too, which costs us money. And so, you know, we don't like that. And, you know, we started a little later on these projects than we normally like to. And so now we're looking at, are we going to be able to get these done this winter? In this case, it has ended up working out fairly well. Highlands did decide to replace all of those water mains with new mains, which is really good. They also decided to use our contractor to do the work, which means that contractor is able to continue working, and it's not, even though they're not working on our part of the project right now, they're not going to be charging us delay time. So that's good. The other two projects are we still don't know exactly where we're going on these. The infrastructure in both of those areas is not well documented. What's documented is you know, unfortunately not very accurate. We have water mains as shallow as 4 inches below existing grade in some areas. Industry standard is 3 feet plus. And so, you know, another issue for us is what we like to do for these. So, you know, as you know, there's different levels of road conditions. Clear Lake Park is a good example where, you know, some of the streets up here were not in horrible shape and some were. And so there's different types of treatment that is done. It's obviously a lot cheaper to do some work to a street that's in relatively good condition, one that's completely gone. What we've been doing for the last few years on our projects is a process that's called full depth reclamation. So, you know, former process was you come in, you grind up the street and subgrade, that is hauled off, disposed of somewhere. New subgrade is brought in, compacted, paved over the top. This process is quite a bit more efficient and potentially more durable in the sense that the grinder grinds it up, mixes cement with the subgrade, puts it right back in and compacts it. That sets, there's some other things that happen, but it sets for a period of time and then the asphalt is laid over the top of that. It's a very stable subgrade. And so this, we believe, is the best long-term solution for these roads because, you know, for all of us sitting here, this is the last time any of these roads are going to be treated, right? It's just, we're going to be focusing in other areas. So this is the time to do it right. The difficulty that we've run into is when you have the shallow infrastructure, there's a mix of it. There's steel pipe, there's asbestos pipe, there's some pipe that has been replaced with, you know, PVC and other stuff. So there's a mix of it out there. There's a lot, some areas that have a lot of abandoned pipe. They just left the pipe in the street, put new pipe in. That's not uncommon, especially for asbestos pipe, because there's, you know, a number of processes you have to go through to remove and dispose of that type of pipe properly. It's also more fragile, some of this older infrastructure. So the compaction process with FDR, not only is there a fairly significant depth of excavation, but, you know, there's a lot of vibration associated with it that can cause damage to infrastructure on the street when we're doing this work. And so we've been working through scenarios. I mean, some stuff Golden State has, I'll step back and say the franchise agreement that we have with Golden State says that if they have infrastructure that's in the way of our road right of way or our road project, it's their responsibility to move it out of the way. But you know, they still had some concerns. I mean, you know, it's a lot of expense, it's time delays. We told them that per the franchise agreement, we would expect any time delays that are borne by us or change orders related to them having to move their stuff out of our way, we expect it to be borne by Golden State Water Company, not the city taxpayers. One scenario that has been talked about over the last week or so is to do a different type of road treatment where we grind less, we have less of a base, and we increase the amount of asphalt, which, you know, can still be a good treatment, but is expected to have at least 5 years less ultimate lifespan. So that's not something that we really like when we're doing this the one time in all of our careers, right? And so I don't know. We met with them a number of times. We had some concerns related to this, and we're, you know, kind of interested in considering the direction of this different treatment in order to avoid impacts to infrastructure, but still have a lot of concerns. You know, there still could be damage. It's still shallower than it should be, and we don't want to have to cut our streets up in a few years. And so we did present an agreement to them that would outline the parameters in which we would consider doing this other treatment. I found out yesterday that they have no interest in signing that agreement, and they're telling us that
This is Golden State.
This is Golden State, and you know, they will follow their obligation to move the infrastructure out of our way. And so, you know, while that appears it's going to be significantly more costly for them, not only are they going to have to remove and replace a lot more infrastructure, delays that we're charged for related to our construction, which could extend into next year, we would expect to be borne by them as well. So we're still kind of working through alternatives on this, but you know, it's kind of a big deal, and just wanted to kind of share with the council one thing that is you know, frustrating. Not that, you know, if these were all city utilities that there wouldn't be any of these conflicts. I mean, we're still dealing with stuff that, you know, no one did right the first time in a lot of cases. I mean, we just have to acknowledge it. And, you know, it's no one's fault that's in the room right now, perhaps, but, you know, there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened around here. And people just took their backhoe and put in water lines. And now we're dealing with that and trying to grow up into a real city. And it's not very easy a lot of times. So with that, I'll just try to address any questions you have about that issue.
Thank you, Councilmember Purdon.
Yeah, reverse engineering and subdivision is difficult, some things, but just a quick question. How much notice did we provide Golden State that we were going to be paving the true streets?
Well, I mean, the first time we would have talked about this was over 2 years ago.
Right.
You know, I mean, they they say, well, we didn't really have the plans until later, and, we did have a bit of a discussion about, well, it's probably not the best practice to wait until you have the 100% set of plans and then try to figure out what you're gonna do. The more investigation you can do when you know that this stuff is coming, I think would be beneficial for all of us. And another challenge that they have is, they dug up their old plans and said, we have, this main here is 3 feet deep, it's good. And then they go out there and start digging and it's, 8 inches or 10 inches. So they're just not accurate either. So that's a more difficult thing to deal with at this point. But, that's why, we do all this surveying, you do the USA stuff, but you still have to go out there and do potholing and actually figure out where the things are.
Just a follow-up, is there any, I don't want to end up paying for the time that we're delayed in this process. And we already have our money ready to go to pay for the full depth reclamation and the longer longevity of a much better product. So compromising that is not anything I'm interested in seeing the city do.
Well, we did talk about it. And you could ask our public works director and project manager.
Oh, I believe
He's
so.
very resistant to even discussing that type of option. But, we also hate the idea of that project sitting there all winter with, like it is right now, basically. It's, they're gonna have to try to winterize it somewhat, but you have it all ground up, tore up, all this dirt. It's gonna be a horrible business if, they spend the winter trying to replace these water lines and then
I
we
can
can't
imagine.
get in and do the paving until spring.
It's just both the streets and the park.
Well, it's, there's fewer issues in the park. There are some issues, but the level of complexity is much more significant in the tree streets at this point.
So they did not do any potholing at all?
I don't know if I can answer that. I don't know if one of you want to address. I would expect some was done.
Golden State or the contractor?
Golden State.
I would assume they did some because they did replace, probably, I don't know, like 1,000 lineal feet of, water main out there on some of the streets,
Is that in the park or is it
in tree streets.
Yeah.
When you saw the work on Olympic,
Yeah.
that very.
Case Excavating has been doing about $2 million worth of work and replacing water lines out there and doing a tie-in on Olympic. There's a lot of just unknown abandoned utilities out there. There's a lot of unknown depths out there. I don't know how much investigation Golden State did.
There are other ways to find out how deep some utilities are. There's ground penetrating radar and all those kind of things.
Yes.
Any of that employee try to figure out how deep those are?
Oh, we actually got GPR out on Clear Lake Park and it's been working great.
It hasn't been used on the tree streets.
Not on the tree streets, but in Clear Lake Park we have been.
Just so the city did that, not Golden
No,
State?
the contractor did.
The
Our
contractor
contractor did.
To verify that he was able to annex, do the design.
Yeah, there's about 5 or 6 streets on Clear Lake Park where water lines need to be lowered because they're too shallow.
Thanks.
City manager, you gave us a timeline. Is that your estimate or is that Golden State's estimate to get all that infrastructure moved in the right place?
But don't recall giving you a specific time.
You didn't give us a specific, that's why I'm asking. You said it could last into next year. Did Golden State give us a timeline?
Well, I don't think we have anything specific yet. Maybe Ms. Hayes can address that a little bit more specifically. But right now, we're even concerned about getting the paving done if we were still moving forward right now this winter, so.
We are unsure about the scope of work that Golden State would have to do at this time. We're still investigating.
Okay.
But it is pretty easy to surmise that the project would go into next year because the last 3 years have been pretty rain heavy. Can't really FDR and pave during those times.
Golden State's a fairly large company. Are they limiting the work to the resources they have here in county, or are we expecting a giant task force to come in to get this done?
I would not expect a giant task force. They have talked about using our contractors, so,
I mean, they've been
and they have
using
giant task force.
some local contractors for the work that they've been doing. And I mean, according to the sort of local team, they basically expended, their budget on the work that's been done already, has been allocated to this area. But in my discussions with the sort of regional manager yesterday, that didn't seem to be their biggest concern. And I mean, in understanding from Mr. Roscoe, who used to run similar companies, there's sort of the district budget and then there's the company budget. He wouldn't expect there to be a shortage of resources to get the work done if they wanted to, but it's just a matter of time to do it.
Councilmember Craig?
Yes, on they run lines down Olympic and they teed off onto each of the T streets. How far into the T streets, and are those lines, as far as they go, they're down to the depth they should be?
They go from Olympic to Walnut on the streets that they did replace the lanes, and they should be 3 foot or more depth. And that's per their standards.
Okay, so they're on each of the 3 streets so far they go in.
They didn't do every single one. I can't remember exactly which ones they did off the top of my head, but.
I mean, we could talk offline or whatever about some of the specifics of this. That wasn't really the point, but just, this is not a great situation, and want to make sure the council was aware of the complexity.
Councilmember Craig?
I think this is exactly the right time to be talking about this out in the public, because as much criticism as we get about our streets, people that are living on those tree streets and all those connectors, they're going to have a muddy mess come January, February, if we can't get this done. And we've been planning. Again, we have all our finances, all our engineering done. The other thing I'd like to know, and I don't think you're going to be able to answer this, do we need to move meter boxes? I've been looking at the progress. The roadways seem much narrower than what I would expect the prolongations of each roadway to be for our right-of-ways. And I know that in the ballpark project, some meter boxes need to be moved because they were actually in the roadway. And I love the public comment that it's our fault that meter boxes are being covered by asphalt that are in the street, instead of looking at who's actually responsible, which was the water company placed them in the wrong place. So I'm worried about the folks in the tree streets. Again, I think we do need to have these conversations.
Is it on? Okay. Can I answer the first
Please.
question? Yes, water meter boxes are being moved, and we are identifying those and working with Golden State and Highlands to get them moved. And that has been going well, actually.
Thank you.
Those are the responsibility of the utility to raise and lower.
Correct. Correct.
Going a little bit further on Councilmember Purdock's comment about leaving these streets in the condition they're in now. I mean, they look like they're down 6, 8, 10 inches in cases. That's not going to be a muddy mess. That's going to be a river.
So on tree streets, they ground down 4 inches from existing. The big cuts that you're seeing is for the curb and gutter sections.
Okay. Speak up.
All right, seems like at the moment, that's all the questions here from council. I'll open it up to public comment. Yes, please come forward.
Hi, Frank.
It's a full chair. Frank Costner, City of Clear Lake. Covered a lot of topics. It's going to be really hard to cover all of them in 3 minutes, so I'm just going to do my best. So Conneaut County Water District is governed by LAFCO, so our district boundaries are set. They're known. You can go on the LAFCO webpage. They're all there. There does need to be some adjustments. In fact, they should have been done at the last MSR that was done when we did do some boundary adjustments. But
What's MSR?
It's a municipal service review.
Thank you.
So anyway, so Conneaut County Water, so we do have, there's Highlands has some overlapping boundaries with Conneaut County Water District. And so I'm sure Highlands is going to clean those up after this election. I think this is a new thing that came to their attention. I'm not sure that they realized how, because before it was just, each person that had a meter was a shareholder, and now so it's a little different. I have confidence, I can't speak for Highlands, but I have confidence that they're gonna clean that up. Just wanna talk a little bit about, some of the water projects that Conocta County Water District's been doing and road issues. We have replaced the line, this inferior line that was on Dam Road. So it was a 4-inch PVC line, and it didn't even go all the way into the end of Dam Road. And so since we did a $2.5 million project, and we replaced that 4-inch PVC line with no hydrants, and now there's an 8-inch line with 150 PSI that goes all the way to the end of the Dam Road. And I just want to update the council on our emergency interties that we're doing.
Before you switch off that, can I just ask a question on that pipe? Would that be sufficient to allow for development up north there and all those paper lots?
It would extremely help, yes, so it's gonna help, it would, all the homes on Dam Road will be able to connect, so as far as like.
I assume those connect, but we obviously have a lot of vacant lots to the north of that. Does the increased flow out there eventually?
Eventually the water lines, that will be a good trunk line that they can extend water lines from that into that area. So we do have an 8-inch water main that goes from 18th all the way down through the apartment complex, the Cass Creek apartment complex, and then ties into that new water main. And then we also have a 6-inch water main that goes down Boyles and ties in at Conocta. So they are looped. And so that 8-inch is a good trunk line for future development.
Great.
So the intertie project that we're working on, that's currently working on now, if only we would have had that during the fire, because that would have allowed us to pump an additional 400 gallons a minute from the Lower Lake Water District into our district. And so unfortunately at this time, when we've had the worst fire that I've experienced in the avenues, both of our interties were out of commission because they're currently being rebuilt and constructed. Well, the new one and the old one. So those are supposed to be completed by the end of the year. And that, like I said, that will allow us to pump 400 gallons a minute between Lower Lake and ourselves either way. There is a casing that now goes across the Lake Street Bridge that ties Lower Lake, that's going to tie Lower Lake in with the Conocta. So those are just some of the examples of the resiliency that we've been working on trying to improve our district to help with the firefighting. And one other thing, just one more quick thing.
You're going to have questions too.
Okay. So we did get a variance from the city of Clear Lake to shallow bury a portion of that 8-inch line because of the Native American artifacts. So there was a few, so normally the water line would be at least 32 inches. So that's our standard, is to have the water line 32 inches deep. But I hope in the future, in 15, 20 years when we're all gone, someone isn't complaining about Conocta water and their substandard shallow water line on Dam Road that's only 17 inches deep. But it is a ductile iron line that is very robust, could probably handle, I don't know what it's going to look like in 30 years, 50 years from now. But anyways, so that's all I have.
I assume that's well documented though. So
it is, yes, it's very documented.
The future selves here will know. Councilmember Kramer.
I have to commend you on that line. I think it's great. You've got, 8? I think you got a hydrant every 400 feet now, 3,200 feet of line, and
yes.
8 of them in there. Is that line live now?
It is, it's all online. So those hydrants are all active.
Okay, and were they used at all during the fire for filling tankers?
No, they were too far away. Basically, it was the fire mostly was on 18th, and so there was really not very good access to that area.
Okay. But it was supplying water that could be pushed up the oil line?
It's all interconnected.
Yeah,
it's all interconnected. Looped. Yeah, it's all looped. Just one more thing, just real quick. So we did, as part of that project, one thing I missed is that we are investing $330,000 for a pavement overlay. I know I've talked to you about that. So that's just some of the work that Conocta Water District and has been working with the city to improve everybody's infrastructure. So we're very proud of that, and you know, I think we're all helping each other. So, you know, I know there's a lot of negative emotions and things going along, but I just also want to point out the positive aspects of, you know, that I'm very proud of the work that Canal Bay Water has done and improving the infrastructure and helping. It's not just hydrants. Hydrants are not the only thing that helps firefighting, you know, and we're kind of in a catch-22 where, you know, where the city council and the city wants us to invest in infrastructure, but then on the other hand, our rates are too high. You know, you can't get grants for everything. So if we invest in more infrastructure, if we have a fire hydrant every 500 feet, our rates are going to go up. So like, you know, you just got to realize that if the city owned the water districts and they put a fire hydrant every 500 feet, you guys would be the ones getting yelled at because your rates would be too high. So, you know, you just got to remember, it is, you know, the grass isn't always greener by owning the water districts.
Frank, we recognize those. But I also wanted to recognize you because when we were up working in the avenues and when we were doing the chip seal projects up there, we didn't have these types of problems. And it was, your crew was great. They worked well with us. When we had all the marijuana grows going on up there, people were breaking in hydrants. I thought we worked very well, you know, trying to protect your hydrants and your water. And we had a good relationship that way. I agree. We need to check the emotions. We need to talk about business and how we can make things better. And leave it at that, because I think we can make this a better place to live.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sim. We went to 150 PSI up there, and yeah, you'd be able to push it up in those lots that are there, I'm sure. Yeah, huh? Could
Yeah, it's very high PSI.
yeah, yeah.
Too high.
So that you could push it up the hill easier to the plots in. I was trying to remember how long ago was it that you first started on that intertidal overlay? I was talking to our Doug Heron way back when.
It's been a long time. You know, after the Lower Lake fire.
After the Clayton fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad that it's
Yeah, and so it's a long time.
usable.
It's the right there.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Any other comments here in the chamber?
Getting jealous, Frank's getting a little too much time.
You took a little bit of your time, so.
I'll be brief. I really appreciate hearing that you don't want to take the path of least resistance. What you're dealing with is the past haunting you, where people made the easiest decision on how to move forward and lay down the infrastructure that we currently have. That's even creating subdivisions, not just the water or the sewer or other things like that. And we don't want to create a situation where 30 years from now, they're like, what did they do? And so, thank you. It might be rough this year, but overall, it's the right decision to make. And I'm really happy to hear you guys saying that, because we made mistakes in the past, and today we're definitely showing that we're learning.
Any other comments here in the chamber?
I'm Stephanie Hummel, and I just, he sort of said what I wanted to say, but the biggest thing, and of course I don't know how to say it, so I'm just gonna say, the main thing is we want a lower bill. And all these things that you guys are talking about, my question sort of is all this gonna raise the bills? I mean, I see that it probably should, or it does, but still, most important, for us is being able to pay that bill that's, gone up to $100, and now is it gonna go more than $100? So, and then I just, I saw the roads over on the tree side there. And I know that those people are used to the bad roads and the water and stuff, but yeah, I really hope that you guys, that somebody can push it to be done, because you've got a couple of months of some good weather still, so we're hoping.
Well, I think the issue here is that there's a lot of interest. It's a very complex situation, right? We want good water infrastructure, we want good road infrastructure, we want growth in the city so we can grow our tax base, and there's a lot of factors in play. Appreciate your comment.
Thank you.
One of the things I'd like to comment and bring, get my tongue untied here, and Frank for bringing it up. A lot of that money that's being spent, thank you, Mayor, is grant money, other people's money. And obviously, we want to keep our rates low too, because we pay the same water bills that you guys are paying. So that is a very big part. Does my crystal ball work any better than yours? Of course not. But we do need to improve that. And one of the things we've been talking about, or trying to talk about, is can we work and coordinate together to maybe get more access to grant money, so it isn't coming out of our pockets. We're using other people's money to improve our infrastructure and make a better city.
And that's why, you know, I'm a little interested in going to the water company and hearing all the stuff that they got going, like this meeting that's going on and, you know.
You should.
Just, you know, I mean, like I said, I'm a concerned citizen. So
Thank you. Sorry.
One quick comment on that. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, it just in the Boyles Fire, what did you say, 75% of the people didn't have insurance? Well, probably.
No insurance or underinsured.
That's probably a function of the cost of insurance. And and that's ISO fees and all those kind of things have to do with private and all those kind of things too. So yes, you might have to pay a little bit more for water, but hopefully your insurance will.
Well, and as a former agent broker for fire insurance, fire hydrants are very important when you're writing an insurance policy. If your home isn't within 500 feet of a fire hydrant, you can't get insurance, and that was 10 years ago. So today, it's even worse. The insurance companies want you to have a fire hydrant at your front door. So that's one of the reasons why we're having these conversations, because we recognize that. And we recognize that, Frank, that you and the other companies are doing everything they can. But we're trying to look at what's best for our community and those folks that are paying those rates.
And I will add, the Canocti Water District is a special district. When's your next board meeting?
It'll be next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, and I'm sure it's on the website as well if you wanted to attend that.
Sure, it's public.
All right, any other comments here in the chamber? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, any comments on Zoom?
There are no comments on the Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I will bring it back to council and ask Mr. Flora, do you require any direction at this time?
I don't. There is just one kind of final thing, and the segue was perfect, talking about the funding. I mean, I guess before I jump into that, I mean, we could talk about this for a long period of time, but at least from the city's perspective, there's a lot of benefit to looking at the system as one system instead of three systems. Right now, there's 3 water treatment plants operating, and having one water treatment plant that can serve the whole system is going to provide a number of economies. There's been some projects on the border of 2 different water districts where both water districts want a water main put into the new street, which doubles the cost of that. And those are the type of inefficiencies that force rates being raised. Now, Canoctown County Water District has the lowest rates of any of the systems in the city, and they've still been able to invest an enormous amount in their infrastructure, largely because they've taken advantage of a number of strict state grants to do that investment. That's certainly what we would want to do in looking at a combined system. And I think we'll come back and do a little bit more of a presentation at one of the upcoming meetings on this, but I just wanted to point it out for all of you to start looking into and thinking about. I'm not one that's the first proponent of additional taxes, but there is going to be a proposition on the ballot in November, Proposition 4, which would be a bond issuance, state bond issuance that would create 10 billion in investments. If you read the headline, it's talking about impacts of wildfire, flood, drought, extreme heat, and other climate-related events. Its focus is a climate bond. But a lot of what it really is focusing on is issues like this and funding for investment in water systems. And so I really want us to take a close look at that and potentially consider taking a position in supporting folks voting on this.
All right, thank you, Mr. Flora. Any other comments from council before we move on?
Is it council member report?
In a moment.
Not yet.
All right, thank you all for the discussion. Mr. Cosman, thank you for your time as well. City manager.
Just just one thing, really that I wanted to bring up. It is campaign season, and there are rules on where candidates can put signs. Now, with the sort of Highlands water election issue, there's been signs scattered and, in my opinion, blighting our community for several months that are put in a lot of places, that all of which are a violation of the municipal code, even though we have not taken action against Highland Water Company for doing that. But it continues to get worse. There's signs nailed to power poles and put in public right-of-ways, any areas that folks can find to stick those signs. And now I think what we're seeing more than normal is other candidates are following sort of that trend. And so just wanted to put it out there that we're going to have to dial this back a little bit. And so, you know, encourage candidates. You know, I know this is part of the process, you know, putting, you know, asking a private property owner to put a sign on their property, of course, is what you need to do. You can't put them in parks. You can't put them in public right-of-ways. And at some point, if this continues, the city's going to have to start removing these signs and make them available to the candidates to put in appropriate location.
And also, if a sign is properly posted on private property with the property owner's permission, I believe there are also penalties for people removing those signs and damaging them.
That is true. Pardon me, I didn't hear that, but I would like to hear that repeated. Is that possible?
Sure. If someone has placed, I'll speak up, Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead.
People, if you've placed your sign with permission from the property owner on the property, it is against the rules for someone else to remove that sign without without the candidate's permission.
Thank you. 2 years ago, I placed signs on. No, I speak now.
Well, this is not, sorry, this is not the time for public comment. I appreciate your experience, but we're past that.
We're just talking about what's today.
What's that?
Talking about what's today and moving forward.
Okay.
And so, continue, City Manager.
That's really all I have.
So with these signs, Director Swanson, I'm gonna just ask you for the council candidates, you've made them aware of the requirements?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Do you know if anyone makes the county candidates aware?
The Registrar of Voters Office goes over that information with them and also gives them the regulations for the city of Clear Lake, the city of Lakeport, and the county, yes.
Thank you. And then City Manager Flora for the separate campaign, the obviously the water company. Before we start taking down signs, can you please get some correspondence out to them, just share with them the COVID situation? I don't want to be in a position where we're taking down signs, we have to wait to get that information.
Absolutely.
All right. Councilmember report, Councilmember Sloop.
We had a LAFCO meeting that lasted about 15 minutes. So there was not much going on. They're continuing working on the MSR for the fire department, all with the county, looking at their boundaries, et cetera, to like normal MSR report. And that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Pearl.
I also sat through that lengthy meeting as the alternate. I was actually surprised how quickly it was concluded. And just also a reminder to the community, the Clear Lake Chamber of Commerce is having our luau. Tickets are still available for October 5th. Hope to get some sponsors and we'll have a good time.
Councilmember Kramer.
Yes, because of the fire, I didn't attend a couple of meetings. I did attend a clerk finance meeting. I'm on the board of clerk. And next day I actually participated in a tour that Fire Marshal Lancaster, clerk representative, DDS, and City Manager Flora, they invited to come along with us. And we toured, and that's, again, I think the manager spoke about an emphasis on fire fuel reductions along and around the two schools, the middle school of City Inn and also Woodland College. That is a priority. and the hospital right there as well. And then as a secondary, widening the public right of way along Highway 53 on both sides, going back, actually needing permission for landowners to go back off the public right of way and on the private roads to further reduce the fuel load. If you look down from the highways, especially and that would be from 18th Avenue clear up to Lakeshore or 40th Avenue. So that was the immediate consequence that I was at. I spent 3 days with the LAC, off and on throughout all 3 days, representing LARCA as one of the nonprofits who were there. We met with really, I don't know how many people we actually saw at LARCA. As Swanson said, there were a lot of people going through there, a lot of people that your hearts go out to. They need help. LARCA's had a reputation and a history of helping with financial assistance, and I think we're meeting next week. Councilmember Slotin is on that committee as well, and we'll try to get some direction. We have raised a substantial amount of money, so we hope to provide some relief to those folks as we can. That's all I have.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Overton.
Yes, I also toured the fires. It's sad to see the people that lost their homes. Our prayers are out with them. I really did out with that, just kind of trying to get our center back into situation. Hopefully, we're on our way to being able to start restocking it and being able to open up our center here soon. And I attended Lake Links meeting. We are still looking we have a program that can help seniors and disabled get, the ones that need to get to the grocery stores and stuff, but it is on a volunteer basis. They do get reimbursed mileage. So, we're still looking for volunteers in our area. So if anybody out there is willing to spend some time, it's kind of whenever it's convenient that we work out with the people. So, kind of just sitting at home, wanting to give an hour or two here and there, please contact the Lake Links. We're definitely in need of some volunteer drivers around our town.
Thank you. For me, I had a visit Lake County meeting this week. I'm very pleased to hear that there's an uptick in clearly lodging and what we give to that group. It's a reflection of increased rentals and tourism here. So that's a wonderful sign. I also just wanted to thank our recreation department. That circus is absolutely amazing. And to have that annually here right in the center of town, our team's doing a wonderful job bringing events for our youth. That make family memories over there, and that's really what we want that department doing. So thank you to them, and of course, I'm sure it's a multi-team effort to do stuff, public works, and making sure it's secure. So thank you all around. That is all I have. Any future agenda items? Seeing none, we are now adjourned to closed session. Thank you all for joining us tonight.